Even more so than it is today, America used to be a nation that was inseparable from its railroads, especially for passenger travel. Today, many cities and towns have trains, but it's a shadow of what it was 100 years ago. We would stand to gain immensely from having more trains and just restoring the level of what we used to have. And I'm going to talk about that a lot on this channel. But today, let's just focus on bringing trains to my bedroom. Let me introduce myself a little here. My name is Keith. I'm an urban planner by trade and I live in Chicago. I also have a background in multimedia communications, both academically and professionally, and lately I've been getting into making videos. I started making short form content on TikTok in August, so yeah, the whole ban thing was always looming, and even now I'm not really sure what the deal is with it. Regardless, here we are on YouTube. My channel is going to talk about all things that urban planning, transit-pilled people love to talk about. That includes nerd-out content explaining transit systems and processes, the history of transit systems, how we can build less car-oriented cities, other urban planning topics, urban sociology, and whenever possible, I want to use my own model railroad to kind of explain some of these topics. But first I need to have a model railroad in the first place. And I mean, my apartment is so small. Where would I even put it? On a shelf? Come on. It's really the classic urbanist dilemma. You want to live in a dense, walkable, transit-rich place, but you end up living in a really small apartment because of that. And also, none of your friends have trucks to help you move stuff. And my bedroom is really small. It's just shy of 75 square feet, so about the size of an average storage unit. My living room doesn't have much space to spare either, with my kitchen table, furniture, coffee table, and desk taking up all the space. One thing I do have a lot of, though, is vertical space. And boy, do I have a wild idea for how to use it. I actually did end up deciding to do a shelf that loops around my bedroom at a height of just above the door. The shelf would be a modest 7 inches deep with a bridge spanning the entrance to my bathroom. Also, as the name of this channel implies, I don't have a car and all the woodworking equipment is at my parents' house, which is not within walking distance. So in other words, if I wanted to build this thing, and I very much did, every part of the shelf would have to fit in a piece of luggage that I can easily take on a bus or a train. Unfortunately, all the footage I got of me actually building the shelf was made for TikTok, but a lot of this footage actually never made it into a TikTok, so enjoy this never-before-seen footage of me building the shelves. And after all that, I had to put together all of those 18 standard size pieces back in my apartment, which as you can see was a whole lot of drilling and screwing. And since I'm renting, and probably will be for a few more years, we're using 20-pound command strips to mount these things. The mounting process was a bit stressful, and the hardest part was keeping everything level. I didn't need to use a level on this section because I was just trying to match it up with the 2 existing segments around it. So I have everything mounted now, except for that one bridge section over here. And some of these sections have been up there for about 3 weeks, and there's no signs that the command strips aren't holding, so it's looking pretty good. Famous last words. And as for that bridge part, I'm calling upon my high school bridge building days to build a simple truss bridge that will span that gap above my bathroom door. That whole process could honestly be its own video, and at the time of posting this video, I'm only just now getting finished with the bridge. Now let's talk about the planning of this layout. I'm talking like the general theme, the types of scenes I want to set up, the kinds of trains I want to run over time, the layout of the tracks, all those things. There is a specific theme I want to go for here, and it starts in early 1900s America. Now, obviously, there's a lot about that time period that was not so great. A lot of people didn't have the right to vote or even be considered citizens, and I'm not trying to romanticize it, but there was one thing about that time period that was better. American cities were built for people riding public transportation. And then, towards the middle of the century, we shifted course. And that's a topic I'm going to explore in depth a lot on this channel. That's kind of going to be the main theme of everything. And hopefully with my model railroad, I'll be able to explain some of these things too. But the theme of the model will basically be attempting to model what North American cities would look like today if we hadn't followed the course of car dependency so hard. Because there are obviously plenty of examples of walkable neighborhoods in North American cities that have a beautiful and distinct urban style. So what I want to explore is how might that style have morphed into the modern age without the stranglehold of car-dependent zoning and building requirements. And similarly, what would our transit look like? I want to model out typical Americana scenes with modern passenger trains running through them. And with this layout, obviously I have to start small, so the main line of the track will be a pretty simple loop, and scale of course, with some of the tracks positioned on the far side of the shelf away from where you'll actually see them, just because of the turning radius of the tracks. The centerpiece of this will be a town center on the bottom segment with a station and a downtown area. I really wanted to add a second track here to allow express trains to pass by, but I don't think I have the space. The town will eventually fade into a more industrial area over here with some sidings for freight trains. And the freight trains will never delay passenger trains on my railroad, FYI. This left segment will be a more rural scene with maybe some hills or nature and groupings of small houses and buildings. I'm not really sure what to do with the top segment yet, so for now I'm probably going to have it be a large yard where I can store the model trains. You probably noticed my first train that I have is a typical Amtrak long distance consist. This one in particular I tried to model after the City of New Orleans route, but kind of in keeping with the theme I just talked about, there are some other specific trains I'm looking at getting. The first ones are the obvious, sexy, fast ones from around the world that would be good replacements for the ones we have in the US, or just examples of the kind of trains that we probably would have if we kept investing in our rail infrastructure over the years. The next type I'm after are those cool, historic, kind of funky models from the US from our golden age of railway travel. The next type are those trains that just aren't super old, but they're also not new, so they kind of have a sort of vintage vibe. And a lot of these are going to be from around the world too, and they'd be examples of the kind of trains that we'd probably still have in the US, again, if we kept investing in that infrastructure over the years. And finally, I'm eventually going to have to get some trains that I just really want to have, like a Metro locomotive and some gallery cars. Sorry. And in the time it's taken me to make this video, there's been some progress on the track layout. So let me go get an outfit change for production value, and then let's go check it out. There we go. Okay, so I was able to get some track to lay down, and it only cost me about $1 an inch, so a little bit less than we're paying for rail extensions in the US right now. I also made some progress on the bridge, including giving it this nice green paint job. I got that mounted, and then I started laying all the tracks, and then finally, after a few months of planning, building, and setting everything up, I had a full loop structure in place, and I have trains running. And if you want to see the train doing a full loop, which I'm sure you do, you're just going to have to follow along because it might be in a future video. Which gives you a good reason to subscribe so you don't miss all the exciting stuff to come. And that brings me to the end of my first non-short form video, even though it is kind of short still for YouTube standards, but whatever. Seriously, there's a lot of cool stuff to come that I think you're going to love, and I hope you follow along for it. Because whether you're here for the model trains, or the urban planning and public transit stuff, or somewhere in between, there's going to be something for you on this channel. At least for now, until I decide if I can handle more frequent videos, you can expect a new video on the 15th of every month. I hope to be able to post more frequently than that, but for now, that's what I'm going to commit to. And if you just can't wait a whole month, check me out on Substack and Blue Sky, because I do post on there a little bit more frequently. Thanks for watching, and let me know in the comments what kind of content you're most excited to see on this channel.